Welcome to Bedtime Stories with Brandon Copeland, and we've got Benson here.
Hello. What's up?
Okay, once upon a time, there was a young prince, and he wanted to prove to his father, the king, that he was capable of taking over the kingdom and running it. And so he wanted to, prove he was a grown-up and tough, and he was a man, and he could lead people. And so he asked his father, and he took a small little army, and he went off to fight monsters. And the first monster that he wanted to fight lived in a swamp. It was a swamp monster called sheelack. And sheelack was a hideous monster that would come out of the swamp at night and eat people's cows and their goats. And nobody liked sheelack eating their cows and their goats. So the young prince trudged into the swamp, knee-deep in muck with his army, small band of men. And they had swords and spears and horses, bows and arrows, and they were going to go defeat sheelack. They got into the depths of the swamp. It was dark. It was becoming night. And they could see some bubbles coming from underneath a tree, a lot of bubbles, like a bubbling, boiling cauldron. But it was large pool of it. And the prince stood there and said, "Sheelack, come out, fight me. Let this battle finish." And sheelack came out of the water, and no one had ever seen sheelack. They just knew that there was a monster that came out of the swamp that would eat goats and cows. But when sheelack came out of the water, she looked beautiful. She looked like a beautiful mermaid, but in the lower half of her body was that of an alligator. So it looked like an alligator woman with long brown hair. And sheelack said, "Why do you torment me? I just wish to eat and live in peace." And the prince said, "You must be done with, for you are eating my kingdom's goats and cows. I mean to end this tonight. Men, capture sheelack." So they took mercy on her. They didn't kill her. They captured her. They tied ropes around her, put her in a cage, and carried her back to the kingdom to show sheelack to the king. When the prince came back into this kingdom, they opened the drawbridge. They had a large celebration, and they were singing songs. "We have captured sheelack. We have captured sheelack. The kingdom's cows are safe." And everyone was just happy. And he was very proud of himself to bring sheelack into his father and the king and show him, "Look what I've done to protect the kingdom. With my brave men, we've captured sheelack." So when he went into the chambers of his father with this cage, and inside the cage it was covered so that the father could not see what sheelack looked like. And he brought her in. He put the cage in the middle of the chamber, and the father was on his throne. And the prince said, "Father, I bring you sheelack, the destroyer of our goats and cows." And he pulled the sheet off of the cage, and inside, the father, the king, saw what was in there. Half alligator, half woman, beautiful woman. And the king let out a horrible, "What? You are sheelack?" And sheelack said, "Yes, I am sheelack." And the king began to weep and cry. He said, "Release her. Release her at once. You cannot keep her in that cage. This is horrible." And the prince was like, "Father, what are you talking about? This beast has been eating our creatures. Why would we release it now? It'll just attack us here in the kingdom. It'll wreak havoc. And the king said, no, this beast that you call is no beast. This is your sister. And the prince was like, what are you talking about? And the king said, Sheelack is your sister. I banished her years ago. For whatever reason, when she was born, she hatched from an egg, different than most human babies. I suppose it was the high priestess of the kingdom that cast an evil spell on your mother, causing her to give birth to this alligator mutant child. So we banished her out of shame and sent her to the swamp to live, never thinking she would come back to the kingdom. The prince couldn't believe it. All this time he thought Sheelack was a monster, and really it was his sister living in a swamp. Well, the prince, upon finding this out, changed his heart. I never knew I had a sister. I shall love her. I shall care for her. I'll make her into the queen that she rightfully should be. So he got her out of the cage, and he had the women bathe her and clean and put a dress on her. So now you had an alligator woman with a dress slithering around the kingdom because she slithered on her belly. And they gave her like a little wheel board to wheel around on so she could go faster. And he treated her rightfully, taught her how to eat with a spoon and a fork, taught her how to sit at a table, which was very difficult. And he raised her and taught her. She was similar age to him, a little bit older. But he taught her and helped her grow and become the rightful queen to the kingdom. And that's how you should treat your sister, isn't it? With love and kindness, and help her. Right? Or your brothers?
Yeah.
That's right. All right, good night.